Live from Los Angeles, welcome back to Good Morning LaLa. And on this hashtag Thought Thursday, we're talking self-discovery and the reinvention of a book club. The founder of OMO, Stephanie Sellers, is with us today. Tell us a little bit about this reinvention in the books that you're reading.
Yeah, absolutely. I found, so last year I spent a lot of time doing self-discovery, as I think we're at a stage in our lives now, or a culture where we're trying to find our most authentic selves, right? Like that's a very strong topic of conversation. And when I was trying to find literature, what I kept looking at, and this is not a knock on these books in any way, shape, or form, was, can I swear?
Sure.
Okay. Was going into the bookstore and seeing in the business and the self-help section, all these books that say like, fuck, unfuck yourself, shit, like, these are the books that are being read and shared so much that are supposed to help you find out who you are. And what I found is in a lot of these books, they say, generalizing, if you wake up at 5 a.m. every morning and you meditate, as we talked earlier, if you meditate, you do yoga and you read and you have a healthy, balanced breakfast, you will be a CEO. And I think that right? And what I found was I was searching for something that helped me identify, do I even want to be a CEO? And I was at an event and I heard a fellow, Jason Silva, speak about this book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Jason's amazing.
Classic.
And Jason's amazing, the book's amazing. And I actually left my last job and took time to travel around the world. And a really incredible thing started to happen is I would be holding this book all over the place and strangers would walk up to me and say, that book changed my life. And all of a sudden we launch into this conversation where I knew more about that person's like soul, heart, and well-being than I did about some of my closest friends. And I found that we typically are having conversations that are like fact-finding, right? Like, where do you work? Where are you from? Who do you know? And trying to identify how important you are to me. Like we're going through that judgment, whether we're conscious or subconscious.
How can I use you?
Yes, seriously.
But I do think that's important. You know, being in Hollywood, we go to all different types of events. We go to red carpet things. We go to, you know, deep spiritual things. And I find the same thing. I think that it's great to go support things, whatever. But I find that when I go to a gathering, if it's not that deep conversation, if there's not a deeper meaning of a connection and a deeper conversation, I'm really bored. You know? Yeah.
A lot of what we live is this surface level conversation because that's that safe space. That's what we know. That's our resume. That's our survey. That's how we respond. And so what I found is when I came back to my friends and my network and I wanted to have this deeper level discussion about, as Frankl says, life is a quest for man to find meaning and purpose. And he finds it in work, relationships, and courage. And I wanted...
While in a concentration camp.
While in a concentration camp in Auschwitz. And I think my friends weren't ready for that conversation. They said, thank you, Stephanie, but also I've got a really busy day at work. I didn't just leave my job and travel the world. I can't just pick up this book that's a little bit dense when I'm like curling up at the end of a really busy day. So what I wanted to do was still share the content from these books. And I went from, you know, reading the footnotes, going from book to book, and basically developing in a way a curriculum that actually ultimately I ended up in a place where I don't agree with Frankl. I now don't agree that we need to have purpose and meaning in a goal-oriented or in looking forward in a direction. We now just to have a confidence in the presence of this moment. Like this is what we're experiencing right here. What happened before is over. The future does not exist. And so OMO is really, so what you'll see here, and you guys can take a look.
That does bring us to the art of loving and the Zen art of archery, because they talk about both.
They talk about both,
presence,
so you can see how like the evolution of the OMO Together series.
So tell us, what is OMO?
Yeah, so OMO is a reinvention of the book club. So I actually formally started it in October. And what I've done is worked really, really hard to, what you'll see if you want to pass these to you guys so you can take a peek, is work really hard to add an approachability to these fairly dense nonfiction works so that you can still capture the meaning and the principles and the prose in about 15 minutes.
This is brilliant.
Brilliant, yeah.
Thank you.
Version.
It is.
But so much more modern and trendy. And
yeah.
That's what I have time for. for.
Yes,
Every
exactly.
day.
Exactly.
I'm that
Right.
girlfriend that's going, no, yes, I'd love
Yes.
to, but I
Yeah.
don't have time for that.
Right.
So tell people, what does it look like? They sign up for OMO, and how does it work?
Yeah, so I've been doing a series of events. So Together is the variety of formats where you can discuss these pieces of work. So I've been doing it private residences. I've hosted about 10 different events so far since October, so one book per month. And then I've also expanded into a dining series where I do one a quarter for a range of 60 to 80 different people, where we come together and I send them these guidebooks in advance so they can take that 15 minutes and get fully caught up. The purpose of the conversation is not to talk about what happened in chapter 5, because that's what real Cliff Notes are.
Yep.
It's like character evolution and the narrative.
Detail oriented.
Yeah, this is what I believe. Each line from these authors is tattooable. Like, it is beautiful, moving prose. And it's not to say each author is right, but it's to allow foundation for discussion. So we come together, I share the guidebooks, I present a summary, and then what we do is each scenario, so you can read one of these, are more meaningful questions.
I love that. The question is, how do you measure mastery? And that will be different for each person, right? So yeah.
So On My Own will be your own response to how do you measure mastery. And we always have the text to fall back onto.
Right.
This is
Love
brilliant.
that.
I've
Love it.
been wanting this for a very long time, and somehow I guess you read my mind. And because I have found books to be more transformative for me than practically anything and everything else I've ever done in my life. You know, they've allowed me to think more deeply and fully about who I am and my place in the world and how I can be more helpful and how I can be happier. And so I love that you're doing this, because you're right, people are short on time,
Yep.
right? But they're also short on meaning.
Right. So much. So tell them how they can find your website and find you and follow
Yes,
you.
so we recently launched a website, omotogether.com. We're also on Instagram at @omo_together. And the evolution of the brand, you're going to see some exciting things coming out in the next few months. But for right now, we're hosting local events in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York. There is a request invitation on the website where you can sign up and be a part of the OMO network, because a big piece is community. So it's ticket-based events for now, and then there's going to be a few things coming out to share this content more widely and also enable you and you and you to host your own OMO event with your community, because there's a formula behind each of these programs where it's foolproof. Like, all the content, all the work is done for you, so you can now create and have those meaningful relationships
Thank you
with
so
people.
much for everything
Yeah.
you do. So important. Books are so important for all of us. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Thank you.